Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. Hey, guess what? My Apple computer finally came on after I tried it for about the gazillionth time. I don't have any idea what in the world was wrong with that thing. I'm pretty sure it's not fixed. But anyway, glad to be back. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and this is what I call my Morning Musings. And produced a couple of videos live on YouTube, and depending on technology, I may have to do that a little bit more. And I'm looking into some things. I've already purchased a better microphone so that if I do some of those live feeds, then my sound is going to be better. And thanks, by the way, to some of you for making those recommendations. Okay, we're looking at Matthew chapter 24. Jesus answering the disciples' questions about the end of the age. And they had asked that question about the end of the age in direct response to Jesus' prediction of the impending destruction of Jerusalem. So, prediction of the destruction of Jerusalem, question about the end of the age, and about the signs of the end of the age, and Jesus' discussion and saying, you will hear of wars, rumors of wars, famines, pestilence, earthquake, etc., etc. Nation shall rise against nation. But Jesus warned those apostles that, among other things, he warned them the end is not yet. But he made a statement at Matthew chapter 24 and verse 8 that is so incredibly powerful. In my youth, growing up, I never, ever, ever, I don't have a single memory of hearing any minister reading in any commentary of the group that I was in fellowship with ever mention the concept of what is known as the Messianic woes, the birth pangs of Messiah. Well, when I began my own preaching ministry and I began to read literature, I happened onto references to the Messianic woes, to the birth pangs of Messiah. And I was absolutely intrigued. It was like, what in the world is this? Well, it came as quite a shock to me that in the scholarly literature, in the academic world, the concept of the Messianic woes is well understood as being a common Jewish motif, part of the eschatological narrative. In other words, the Jews believed, and here's what's critical about this. The Jews believed that in the last generation, you would have the appearance of Elijah. You would have a time of great tribulation. That great tribulation would come on Israel. Only the righteous remnant would endure. Only the righteous remnant would be saved out of that righteous or of that tribulation. And that great tribulation, those birth pangs of Messiah, would lead absolutely to the resurrection, the judgment, the coming of the Lord, the new creation. Thus, when Jesus told those living, breathing human beings, you will see and you will hear of these things, and these are the beginning of the birth pangs, that absolutely demands that Jesus was not talking about some long extrapolated, extended, delayed, postponed period of birth pangs. His living disciples, listening to him on that Mount of Olives, are the ones who would witness the birth pangs of Messiah. Be sure to go back and to visit and to view the previous video. I mean, you really, really have to catch the power of this entire motif. Now, here's something I want to share with you this morning, okay? Throughout the Old Testament, and I made a short list just for your consideration. If you got a pencil and paper, let me read off for you just a few of the Old Testament allusions and references to the birth pangs. Some of these are more explicit than others. Some are not quite as clear, but they all demonstrate this singular point, that this imagery of birth pangs was something that was experienced, well understood. It was terminology that was used by the Old Testament prophets to speak even of pagan nations that were expecting national destruction. Let me say that again. The terminology of the birth pangs of a woman being in travail could even be used to describe pagan nations that were expecting imminent national destruction. Do you catch the power of that? Psalms 48 uses this term of travail, of impending destruction. In Isaiah chapter 21, Babylon is depicted as being in travail at the impending destruction at the hands of the Assyrians. Now that happened in the 8th century BC, somewhere between 701 and 713. In Isaiah chapter 37, the Assyrians have come up before the walls of Jerusalem. Now this is not a pagan nation, obviously. I'll get back to that momentarily. But in Isaiah chapter 37, the Assyrians under Sennacherib have surrounded the city of Jerusalem. And Eliakim and Shebna are sent to the prophet Isaiah to report the words of the general of Sennacherib's armies, who had boasted and bragged about what they were about to do to Jerusalem. Hezekiah was stunned, and so he sent them, his men, Shebna and Eliakim, to Isaiah the prophet, saying, "This is a time of travail. This is the time of birth, but there is no strength to deliver." And Isaiah gave full assurance that Jerusalem would be destroyed. What's the point? Well, here's the imagery of a woman in travail at a time of national judgment. In Jeremiah chapter 48, verse 11, Moab was in travail at the impending destruction at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonians. But then, in Jeremiah chapter 50, as a result of the prophecies of Jeremiah and his contemporary prophets, it depicts Nebuchadnezzar as being in travail of childbirth, realizing and understanding her destruction was now at hand. So, what's the meaning of all of this? Jesus had predicted the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. The disciples asked for a sign of the end, for the day of the Lord. And Jesus said that before the end would come, the Messianic birth pangs would arrive and His disciples would see them. By using this terminology and this motif of the birth pangs of Messiah, Jesus was saying that the coming of the Messiah, the day of the Lord, was to be in full harmony with the old covenant usages of the birth pangs. It was to be a time of national judgment. Birth pangs of Messiah, giving birth to the day of the Lord. the day of Messiah. Tribulation, day of the Lord. And you will see these things, Jesus told those apostles. Thus, since they had asked about the parousia and the end of the age, and Jesus said the birth pangs of Messiah would lead directly to that, and they would see those birth pangs, that meant those apostles would see the day of the Lord, the parousia, and the end of the age. Wow, this is fantastic stuff. And we'll look more at this motif of suffering, tribulation, and resurrection on the flip side. In the meantime, don't want you to forget, laid this over there and forgot, this month, my very special book offer is this: We Shall Meet Him in the Air. Now, in this book, I have an extensive discussion of the Messianic birth pangs, the Messianic woes, giving birth to the day of the Lord, the judgment, the resurrection, and the significance of that connection. This book is regularly $23.95 plus $4.95 shipping. For this month, April 2019, delivered price, $19.95. All right? $19.95 delivered to your door. No extras, no surcharges, etc. All right? Go to my website right at the very top, DonKPreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. There's a banner there for this book. Take advantage of it. Some of you already have. I appreciate that so very, very much. Okay, on tomorrow's video, I'm going to share with you some of the New Testament references. I'm probably going to throw in some Old Testament references about this, the Messianic birth pangs leading directly to resurrection. Those concepts, tribulation, resurrection, are absolutely inseparable. You don't want to miss that. I'll see you on the flip side.